has to go pee. He has to use the bathroom. That's why. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
Cool. So,
alrighty. What's up, everybody?
howdy, everyone.
Howdy,
Welcome back to
everyone.
Lorecast
Philip had
Eternal.
picked this.
We made it. It only took us forever, but we did it.
Yeah, fucking.
Okay.
Come
Are you
hella
ready?
high water part 2, I suppose.
Yeah, the third time is the charm.
I think this is the 4th time.
Yeah.
Right.
Listen,
you-
life hates us. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Okay.
But
I'm
welcome
gonna
to
do
Lorecast
like
Eternals.
a deep breath, acting like I'm smoking a cigarette, even though I don't smoke.
Get some oxygen into your lungs. Prepare thyself.
I've been ready.
don't
I've
fuck
been
it up.
like marinating this rant.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So
So hang on. Before you start, welcome back to Lorecast Eternals.
yeah,
I'm
welcome back to
Phil.
Lorecast Eternals. Yeah.
I'm Mitchell.
Jacob. That.
I'm.
You- uh,
Yeah.
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 So I'm Phil.
Oh god, I'm Jacob.
I'm Mitchell. God.
Mitchell's
that should
like,
not
he's
have been
waiting.
That fucking difficult.
He's
Anyway,
fucking waiting for this rant.
Oh.
Yeah, Mitchell has claimed the right to rant in this episode. So before we actually get started, he's going to be doing that. So this should be hilarious.
Subject matter is Chicken Express.
Yes, so this should be interesting.
I
to
have
say
no
the
idea
least.
what this rant is. So like,
Neither
I'm
do
here
I.
for-
I actually didn't ask him on principle because I wanted to like wait to hear it.
So I went to work on a Saturday because I have a lot to get done, and I was like, okay, I got a fair amount done, and I prepared. So like after I get done recording tonight, I'm just probably gonna go hang out on my couch and continue to work. So on my way home, at the corner, like right net, like catty corner of where I work, there's a Chicken Express. And I went like, okay, I'm gonna get a gallon of unsweet tea because I don't want to just drink alcohol a day, and I wanted something else to drink other than water as well.
Yes, the
Oh,
stage
man,
is
speaking of
set.
alcohol, I'm gonna go get myself a drink.
You're just gonna miss half my rant?
I think he
Bro,
can still hear you.
wireless headphones.
Oh, damn.
We have the technology.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
wow.
getting booze and listening to a rant. Like, get on my level, homie.
The best of both worlds.
Yeah. So I sit there and I just like, I'll pull up and I'm just like, I'm not expecting to pay much for this this gallon of unsweet tea. I order it and they just hit me with yeah, that'll be like $6.40. I went, excuse me? A gallon of unsweet tea is now $6.40? When did this happen?
I'm gonna keep it a buck. I haven't gotten Chicken Express sweet tea in so long. I have no idea what price point to compare that to.
So, like, really, I was expecting maybe $4 after COVID and all that. So, I called my brother after this because I want somebody to rant to. My brother is typically always there to listen to as I rant. This man does nothing but just defend Chicken Express, going like, yeah, the times when you grew up are just completely different. Have you learned a lesson? Are you going to buy unsweet tea from Chicken Express again? You should just know that the price is going to be higher. And I was like, bro, you're not helping me here at all. Not one bit. You're just defending them and you're not letting me rant. You're not letting me like get out my anger. You're only doing is making me more angry.
Mitchell needed a homie, but instead he got a hater.
Exactly. So I kind of like marinate in this anger as I'm drinking my unsweet tea.
Did the unsweet tea still taste the same?
Actually, it was Chicken Express unsweet tea is like the best unsweet tea that there ever is.
So it was seasoned by your hate.
Exactly. And I'm sitting there just like 3 or 4 hours pass by after that. And I have this idea while I'm using the restroom. It's like, wait a minute, I got access to the way back machine. I'm going to go see how much it was. Not 3 months ago, a gallon was $3.40 a gallon was $3.49.
For unsweet tea.
So in a period of 3 months, it went from being $3.49 to $6.
They basically doubled the price. That's oof.
I just went, are you kidding me? Really?
This is why I don't drink sweet tea.
This is unsweet tea, but still.
Sorry, let me rephrase. This is why I don't
same
drink
thing.
tea.
Is there like a tea shortage or something?
I don't think there is, but how dare Chicken
No,
Express?
it's called inflation.
No. What it is, and this is something that you haven't considered, Mitchell. It's really important. What it is that you specifically can go fuck yourself.
You're right.
That's what it is.
But like, I went
They
to the
did it
Wayback Machine
specifically
like
to spite you.
in 2020, it was still $349. In 2021, it was still $349. On websites today that are not fully updated with the price changes, still say $349. This change happened in August.
Get fucked.
Oh fuck! Get
It's
wrecked,
like,
mate.
are you kidding me? You
Get-
expect people to pay $6 for your gallon of tea now? I'm gonna go to HEB.
I would like to, at this point, remind you that people pay like $20 for a cup of coffee.
Those
Every
are
time I
really-
tell my
okay,
mother-
everyone knows that coffee prices are a
No,
scam,
dude,
though.
every time I tell my mother about the price of Starbucks coffee, all she does is shake her head and goes, I remember when Starbucks first opened, when it was still only in Seattle, and she went there to go visit her in-laws, and she was like, Starbucks, $3 for a cup of coffee? That is the dumbest shit I have ever heard. And just think about that. Starbucks was charging $3 for a cup of coffee back when they first opened, and my mother, who is like one of the most practical women alive, was like, "That's stupid as shit. I'm gonna pay my I'm gonna pay my like $1 for my like, McDonald's cup of coffee."
McDonald's
only
coffee
gotten
is better
worse
than
since then.
Starbucks coffee. So
Is McDonald's coffee still hot as the sun?
Not anymore. They got sued over it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know they did. I just didn't know if like, anything actually came from it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, the guy won. The guy won the lawsuit, if I remember correctly. Either that or
Was
they
it-
settled.
yeah. But yeah, that's my rant.
That wasn't as violent as I expected it to be, but I guess I'm normally used to
I could
Phil
always talk
ranting.
about Spectrum.
Oh, please. I mean, why not? Just tack on. Make it worse.
Yeah, no, so
Yeah.
that's part of the reason that we had to move recording back to this weekend was because I lost internet. Because I was told almost 2 weeks ago at this point that I would be losing internet. And then I never lost internet. So I kept using the internet. And then finally, literally, we were going to record Thursday. On Thursday afternoon at like 3 p.m, they cut my internet. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
That feels pretty personal.
Yeah, no, I felt offended. And now I'm paying $10 more for half the speed.
Because we
Yeah,
love Spectrum.
that's what got me is like, fuck, because you're paying 50 for a gig. Now you're paying 60 for 500 meg.
Yep.
That's rough.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
how
no,
the
it's-
lady you talked to was like, I'm gonna be frank. This is gonna suck ass for you.
Yeah, no, it was great, but we don't talk about that because, like she technically shouldn't have said all those things.
And that's fair. She was doing you a favor.
She was doing me a solid homie son. She even hooked me up with like a back to school deal. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, does this go out to everyone? And she was like, it's going out to you. And I was like, cool. That's all I'm going to ask about.
Message received.
And so, yeah, no, because it was initially it was like, oh yeah, $60 for 300 megabytes. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And she was like, but with our back to school deal, you can get the same price for 500 megabytes. And I was like, I'm going to be frank with you because you've been frank with me. Both of those options are ass because I used to pay 50 for a gig. And she was like, yeah, nope, I get it. Like, this sucks. But also, like,
It's what you
I
got.
don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. So unless you want to pay $90 for a gig, like, you might want to just take the 500. And I was like, you're right. I'm going to take the 500. I'm not happy about it though. And she was like, understandable.
Because like Spectrum's like the only internet available in your town now, right? Basically.
Well, in my area, there's 3
your
service
area.
providers in the city I live in, but
But when you live in apartment complexes, you really don't have a choice.
yeah.
you kind of get one and that's it because usually the provider comes out to the apartment complex and they hook up for the complex. You can't. Rare is the location where you can hook up by apartment.
Yeah,
That was the
well-
one nice thing about where we lived in Brian, Mitchell, and I. When we lived there, is we actually could get internet by the apartment.
Yep.
That's pretty nice.
I don't pay for my internet. It's free. Tech.
Yeah, they actually included it, but they were like, "Yeah, this is only like 300 megs, but it's free. But if you want to get a better package, you can." And then we just like used the 300 because that was all we needed.
I get 400 for free.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
I mean, because realistically, like you need to be doing some pretty hardcore internet stuff to like need more than like 500 megs. Like if you like for you to actually need the full gig, if that's what you're paying for, you have to be doing like a lot of fucking
You also
internet
have
heavy
like a
shit.
special router that can actually be able to handle
A gig.
processing.
Now,
that.
the one nice thing I will say about Spectrum is they gave me a Wi-Fi 6 router.
Damn.
Yeah, that just came
Nice.
as part of the package.
That's pretty
Nice.
fucking
Like
nice.
because I didn't have a choice in the matter, because they were cutting my old internet connection and forcing me to take this new one basically. They hooked me up with so technically it should have been like a $50 installation and activation fee, but the woman was like, "Yeah, no, we're gonna hook you up with a good install program, so it's only gonna be $20, which is like the standard activation fee. And we're going to provide all of your hardware free of charge." And I was like,
That's nice.
"Yeah, dude." So I got a new modem and a new router, and the router is Wi-Fi 6 enabled, and I have a Wi-Fi 6 Wi-Fi card, so like I am utilizing all 300 of those 300, or all 500 of those 500 megabyte bits. I can't.
And they got out there pretty fast too, because they're out there like the next day, right?
I mean, sure, yeah, as long as you don't count the fact that they were an hour and a half late because some dude clocked out early and didn't want to finish his job.
Nice. Well,
Oof.
other than that, is this the rant part being over?
I think
We're
this might
already
be
like we're already
Yeah.
11 minutes into this. 12 minutes now.
Are we?
Yeah, it
Have
went
we?
by
Yeah.
fast.
Have we even like talked about what we're going to be covering today, or like shout out the Patreon?
No.
We
Well,
should do that.
shout out to
Probably.
our beautiful Patreon members.
You guys are
Thank
awesome.
you. We love you.
We make our hearts sing, and even though we disappoint you constantly, you still love us.
We're
there's-
like that distant dad you keep giving chances to. We keep fucking it up.
Yeah. There's one new member. His name is Jay. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
You the homie.
Yeah. Other than
I think
that,
that's
we're covering Sky Pirates, Sky Dwarves,
Skydwarves.
Flying
Steampunk
midgets.
Pirates. I don't know.
Kharadron
Kharadron Overlords.
Overlords.
Kharadron.
Like I said, I'm reveling in my incorrectness. Kharadron Overlords.
Yeah.
Oh, and just so it is known, this is going to be a 2-part episode because there is a lot of information on
There
Kharadron.
is so much damn information.
There is so much fucking information. So, and because we were so late on this episode because life happened. This is how the next 2 episodes are going to go. So we're going to do Kharadron Part 1 this Saturday. Next Saturday, we're going to do a bonus episode. And the Saturday after that, we're going to do Kharadron Part 2. That's how this party is going to go. Just so everyone knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And also, something I think we forgot to talk about is we've already said this in the Discord. I'm going to go ahead and say it to anyone who hasn't read it yet. Game night has moved. It's going to be moved to Tuesday. The Tuesday after. So, yeah. So that means the upcoming Tuesday is going to be the first game night in which game night has been moved. So like that's going to be the first new game night. It's from this point forward, it's going to start at 6 and end at 10.
Central Standard Time.
Central Standard Time. So that's using, I know being during the week's a little weird, but that is going to allow the 3 of us to be together on game night a lot more often, which was kind of a problem in the past. And also, we are going to be announcing what game is going to be played ahead of time, just so everyone has time to get the game. It's not so kind of inconsistent, I guess, and not so up the chance. And we are going to be putting a focus on more multiplayer friendly and cheaper games, so it's easier for everyone to like get it. So after we're done recording this episode, we are going to put in the gaming channel what game is going to be played. I think that's it.
Cool beans.
All right. I think it's time to start talking about Sky Dwarves.
Okay.
All right.
To start it off,
So much information.
seriously, you just want to give us a explain it to me like I'm 5 paragraph of what this is.
Okay. I'll do my best, Dad. So Kharadron Overlords. They are flying dwarfs, like we talked about. We're gonna be primarily going over their lore from the Age of Myth to the Age of Sigmar, and we are going to be breaking down their culture and organization, society, and the Kharadron code and stuff more in the second episode. We'll probably talk about it a little bit in this one. But this is mainly going to be like what they were and how they became what they currently are.
I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I was asking, explain it to me like I'm 5 paragraph of what the Kharadron are.
No.
Okay.
I do what I want.
Okay.
So
I appreciate you lining it out for us, though. That's nice.
What the Kharadron Overlords are? So they are they're dwarves. So they are of the dwarvish race.
Durden, really.
Durden. Fuck off.
Is it Dwarden?
Dwarden or whatever the
Dwarden.
shit.
What is it? It's
Dwarves.
It's Dwarden. It's Duardin. Dwarden.
Yeah.
Dwarden.
It's fucking dwarves. Nobody gives a
dwarves.
shit about their fucking copyright compliant bullshit.
Thank you. They're dwarves. And they are, I mean, I guess with how they fly and shit, they don't really only stay in Shimon, the realm of metal, but like that was where they were from originally.
Yeah, they're from the realm of Shimon, but they 100% own the skies of literally every realm.
The only thing that can really challenge their aerial supremacy is Tzeentch, but they've kind of kicked the shit out of Tzeentch every single time he's tried. So
yeah.
So we'll talk about that when we get there.
So what the Kharadron Overlords were is they were just the normal ass dwarves of the Age of Myth. The Carricks, or not the Carrick, what were they called in fucking Age of Sigmar?
Dowie?
No, like in the world it was the Carricks, like Khazra Carrick.
Yeah, it was the Carrick.
Kazakhan?
Yeah, I think they're called like
Kazukan.
Kazukan, yeah.
Kazukan, yeah.
Thank you. That's what they're called in Age of Sigmar.
But that was the Age of Myth, actually.
That's what they were, and they were forced to become the Kharadron Overlords during the Age of Chaos because, and once again, we'll go deeper into this. This is just the outlining for Mitchell because he's dumb.
I mean, if you're starting with the Age of Myth, just explain everything in the Age of Myth.
Okay, I can do that. So, we've gone over Age of Myth a lot with a bunch of multiple races, and that was basically all the gods, Sigmar fighting all of the gods and putting the gang together, and the Pantheon of Order, and establishing civilization and life throughout all of the fucking mortal realms and whatnot. And everyone was happy, and nothing bad would ever happen because chaos didn't exist. They're totally not going to come and murder everything. That's not a thing. That's never happened before. So, Grungy...
Tzeentch will remember that.
So Grungy went to Shimon and started doing Grungy things, essentially. Crafting the realm to fit his people and making all of these masterwork pieces to support the dwarven race and doing a bunch of like good dad things.
Yeah. Also would like to emphasize this is Grungy is actually with his people. He's not like Sigmar kind of up in the sky. He's actually sitting there building these structures with his race.
Yes, he is. He is very hands-on at this time.
They get done with the shift and they go down to the bar for a couple of beers to hang out,
and
friends.
It actually causes some issues later on because of that, but we'll get into it. But yes, Grungy is very hands-on, crafting this land for his people to prosper. There's the dwarves move in and they start building shit, and there's all this scientific and advancement and great works of engineering and all kinds of crazy shit going on, and they start really taking off, and they're right up there with the human elves and whatnot, and they're having a great fucking time.
Basically, the big thing to remember about the founding of the Dwarven Empire is that they start as the first clans of the Kazukan, and then that eventually ends up becoming the Khazalid Empire under the guidance of Grungy.
Yes, the first clans of the Kazukan become the Khazalid Empire. Another important thing that happened is while how legend goes, is while Grungy was doing all of this, making these great works and laboring to create these things for his people, is his I think it was his breath basically mixed in with
the sparks of hitting the metal.
Yeah, his breath mixed in with the metal dust and the elements of Shimon and whatnot, and that's what created Aether Gold, which is extremely important to the Kharadron Overlords.
Yeah, if there's three things that kind of characterize the Kharadron Overlords. It is Skyports, Aether Gold, and Kharadron Code. Those are like their big three things.
And
but
a subclause of those big three is overwhelming firepower.
Yes. So when it comes to this Aether Gold, there is like one set of people that actually kind of realize their potential, and you kind of have these.
Real quick before we go into that, I would just like to point out that the description for Aether Gold in its solid form, because real quick, Aether Gold is in its natural state is a substance that's less dense than air, so it actually floats way up above the cloud line.
It's also caustic as shit, if I remember correctly.
Yes. It causes a lot of chemical burns. Hence
which
why
is
all
why
the there's all these suits.
Well, it's actually funny because Kharadron Overlord suits are actually like airtight and they have like rebreathers and shit. And I'm like, this started to sound like Space Marines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they kind of are, honestly.
Have you seen that one picture of the Kharadron
about...
Overlord about to go suit up, and it looks like a Space Marine about to
100%.
go suit up?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. I love it. I'm like, oh man, they're dwarven Space Marines.
But no,
I guess they're more akin to the Leagues of Votan, I guess, because they're all
yeah.
That makes more sense.
But no, so the thing that like makes me laugh though is that so they can transform that into either liquid fuel or solid bars of gold, and it looks like gold, but their description is that it's stronger, brighter, and more malleable.
That makes no sense.
You know
makes no fucking sense.
You know what? Well, it's made by God breath and shit, so I don't think it needs to make sense. But you know what it reminds me of, and I don't really know why it reminds me of this.
Seriously, or Jacob, sorry, it's stronger and yet more malleable than gold.
Oh yeah, it's retarded. It makes no fucking sense. Like I
can imagine like
I understand it is stupid as shit, but also like so
comparing string to silk, maybe that makes sense.
I don't fucking know. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt what you were going to say.
No, you're good. What I was saying was, I don't know. I guess it's because of like how light it is. What it really reminds me of is that material. I think NASA uses it a lot in space and shuttlecraft. It's basically like solidified air.
Oh, aerogel.
Aerogel. It's extremely insulated from temperature and whatnot. So like you can basically be holding it to an open flame, and if you have your hand on the other side, you won't feel it like ever, basically.
Yeah.
And it's light as shit. I don't know why, but it's always kind of reminded me of that. I probably isn't correct at all, but that's always what I've kind of envisioned it in my head.
Yeah. Well, with this Aether Gold, there was a kind of subgroup of dwarves that kind of found like its use. They were called really the Steamhead Pioneers. And they became really rich off of Aether Gold.
Well, yeah, because they started doing a bunch of dumb shit with it.
That kind of gives a backdrop or like a fallback of what happens in the Age of Chaos. But this also allows for the development and advancement of Aethercraft, where Aether Gold is able to be used as a fuel to propel these craft that can go for longer periods of time than your typical gyrocopter.
Yeah.
And one thing to remember is that before this time, the dwarves were the only faction that had mechanical, or from the world that was, they were the only faction that had mechanical flying machines.
Yeah.
And before we get super into that, though, one thing we need to talk about is after Grungy had finished making like all of these wonders for the dwarven people, and what it was called was the God-wrought Isles, and they were like absolute fucking marvels of engineering.
Yeah,
and they were called God-wrought because Grungy made them essentially.
Yeah, and these are literal islands that Grungy crafted.
And so after Grungy had made all of this stuff for his people, that's when he fucks off. That's when he's like, cool, I've made this land for my people, and they need to, if I remember correctly, he's damn near specifically said they need to learn to prosper without me, without my guiding hand, because they need to be their own people.
I'm not sure about that. I know he left to go fulfill a promise.
Go help he went to go fulfill a promise to Sigmar, but he also left because he's like,
Yeah, it was a twofold decision. One, he owed Sigmar a favor. Two, he wanted his people. Yeah.
He truly believed that they could not, they could only truly thrive if he wasn't there to guide his hand, their hand.
Mhm.
He truly believed for them to become their own people and have a successful civilization that would last for thousands and thousands of years, is if there wasn't a god babysitting them. And so he fucked off to go do Sigmar stuff, which culminated into the Stormcast Eternals, basically, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
And that's his departure. That's when he left and basically never came back. And that did lead to some grudging for his people later on.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah,
then we come to the first great catastrophe of Timon, which is the descent of the Load Griffin.
Yeah, God Beast doing shenanigans. So basically, they find Aether Gold and they start mining it and using it very aggressively, and it starts causing, I don't know if like pollution is the right word, but it starts throwing all this like stuff in the air and shit, and it attracts a God Beast called the Load Griffin.
Not quite. So what it is that the few people who know how to mine Aether Gold out of the air, they get so obscenely wealthy off of it that there was a massive discrepancy in wealth inside of the Godrot Isles. And so people were praying for change. They thought that the rich were getting too rich and that the poor didn't have enough. And so they started praying for change. And guess who answered?
Did you say change?
Yeah, exactly.
There's only one God that we know.
Yeah, exactly. But no,
Tzeentch doing Tzeentch things.
Yeah, so really, Tzeentch is like, oh, well, I can make that happen for you. And so he sent his demons and he starts forming underground cults. And then at the culmination of his plan, he lures in a god beast known as the Load Griffin.
Yeah, pretty much this big old griffin kind of lands in the middle of the Godrod Isles. And it has such a magnetic force with it, which is really weird that a god beast would have a magnetic force.
It's a god beast. They're whack.
It actually starts messing with the isles to the point where like it's creating, I don't know, earthquakes.
Well, it basically changed the magnetic laws like of the realm, and it started basically tearing the land apart.
Yeah, so a lot of what are prosperous civilizations within the in these isles are just completely obliterated, and there's a lot of people are dying. So you have kind of a few group of dwarves that are trying to get rid of it, and in the process of getting rid of it, was it them or a Tzeentch cult person that actually like was in the process of turning it into gold?
So what it was is the 9, the 9
mightiest Aethermancers.
Yes, I'm putting an emphasis on 9 because we all know what Tzeentch's favorite number is.
Yep.
So the 9 greatest Aethermancers of the Empire all came together. And they were like, oh, yeah, we're going to turn this thing into solid metal. We're just going to turn it into solid gold. So if it's solid gold, it can't fuck with the magnetics because its magnetics were so strong that it was literally altering the God Isles, the Godrot Isles themselves. But one of them in secret was actually a Gaunt summoner known as the Watcher King. And he killed all the other Aethermancers, took control of the spell, and then they did succeed in turning the Load Griffin to solid gold, but the magic energies that were released because of that ended up opening up a rift directly into the realm of Tzeentch.
Not even just the magic energies; it was literally the death screams of this like beast that ripped that hole too.
Yeah. And if y'all need to know what a Gaunt summoner is, basically they're just really powerful summoners that work for Tzeentch.
Yeah.
So the Load Griffin dies and problems start.
Yeah. Now, if you're wondering what the Godrot Isles were and where it's located, you can go look at a map of Shimon, and it is literally just the Spiral Crux. That's what happened to this land, because it used to be like a pretty uniform piece of land. Now it's just shattered into
It's not great.
Yeah. It's like if somebody threw a lot of pebbles into like the same spot in water, just slightly alternating in a pattern. It's kind of what it looks like. Well, the waves. That's what the waves look like.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the picture of the spiral clux, and I saved a picture in my notes, and like, fuck, dude, it's rough. But yeah, so that happened like right before the Age of Chaos started, because I know Tzeentch doing all that fuckery kind of leads directly into the Age of Chaos, if I remember correctly.
So whereas basically everywhere else was the blood, or the gore tide. There we go, the gore tide. In Shimon specifically, instead of Tzeentch, or instead of Khorne being the predominant source of chaos, it was Tzeentch. And so this is where we see Tzeentch actually taking part in the Age of Chaos, and where he made his big push to try and
Is
take
this the
over.
first time we're actually seeing something different than Khorne?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, the dwarves were at least not the Fire Slayer dwarves, but like the Shimon dwarves were almost exclusively fucked over by Tzeentch.
Yeah. With this whole entire thing, what happened with the big old griffin that kind of got turned into gold, that kind of started this entire idea of the sky exodus because of this Tzeentch invasion that was coming into the land. So dwarves were pretty much just kind of left with a couple of choices. Go to the Fire Slayers and ask for help. They promptly said no. Go to Azir. Gates closed. If you can't run from them because you got short legs, what's your third option?
Fly, apparently.
Yes. So that's where you go back to these Steamhead pioneers, is that they advanced the Aethercraft to a point where the fuel was efficient enough to actually fly for quite some time, because like gyrocopters from the past, they like in battles they could like stay up for the battle maybe like a couple of hours, but now these Aethercraft can actually stay up for days at time. You're able to go to other colonies, and when it comes to this what's going on in this Age of Chaos, they kind of quickly realize that the only way to survive is to actually stick together. So they would go to other, I'm just going to use the term Skyport, even though at this moment it's not a Skyport. It's like other civilization and villages of where dwarves are located that are just also in their Aethercraft, and they would get together, and that like ape in what was like ape together equals strong.
Yeah, basically.
Because if you have multiple ships, it's easier to fight off Tzeentch demons in the sky instead if you just have one ship.
Why have one ship when you can have 90?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
one important thing to note about the other big reason why they took to the sky instead of trying to hold themselves up inside of their carracks or their mountain fortresses is that at the time, because of this rift that had been opened up to Tzeentch, the entire realm of Kamon was being so flooded with Tzeentch's power that it was mutating the land and creatures in it to the point where it was becoming almost inhospitable to anything living that wasn't a demon.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the term that was used for that Shimon became like an anathema to life, or to mortal life.
Yeah. And so some of them did try to just hide inside of their fortresses, and they were like, fuck you, we've got reserves for days. Like, there's no way we can die, yada, yada, yada. And so the demons were like, all right, cool, stay there. And they would drop mountains on top of these fortresses. Like, they'd block all the entrances, and then people would suffocate inside of their mountain fortresses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I want to pretty much state, like, their exodus to the sky, it was their last resort. Many of their people died in the process. There was this tale of one, like, literal just, I don't know, I'm just going to use the word kingdom, left
Carrick.
to go to the sky. Carrick. Yeah. We're leaving to go to the sky, but only 3 survived.
Yeah, 3 people out of the entire Carrick. One important thing to note is that whenever we say that, like, oh yeah, these people, they went to the skies and these Carricks like left for the sky, literally what they did is they strapped aethermantic machines into their Carricks and they literally just floated the mountain away. They were like, fuck this, we're out, and they just took the mountain with them.
By the way, do you know what Kharadron actually means?
Sky mountains, doesn't it?
Sundered mountains.
Sundered mountains.
Yeah. So they're the Sundered Mountain Overlords.
They're the lords over everything beneath them because those are plebeians who walk. Gross.
Another thing that's not a soup that I think is really important to talk about with the whole exodus of the dwarves and whatnot is that they essentially broke tradition to do this, and that's very important because the stubbornness of dwarves, right? And in doing this, it broke them from tradition, and that was a really big thing.
The tradition at the time was like, oh, if you're being attacked, go hide in your mountain. Like, what the fuck are they gonna do?
Right, exactly, and that wasn't working. But normally dwarves are so stubborn; they're like, "It was not working. Who gives a shit? We're just gonna keep trying.
Do it harder, and it'll work."
Yeah, and that was not working.
No, not one bit. So that's kind of like with everybody going to the skies. That's kind of where you get your new groups. And what do we call them? Barracks?
Give me a second. I'm readjusting my mic.
Yeah, I believe that's the right term. Is barracks.
Yeah. So you got like really what are just new sky kingdoms.
Yeah,
which we're just gonna call barracks. We're probably gonna get roasted on that. That's probably wrong.
Oh, sure.
No, they're called the skyports themselves are called barracks.
Yeah.
So it's like
there's probably some weird dwarven pronunciation that makes it sound different.
Pronunciage, I like that.
Pronunciages, yes. So it probably sounds different than barracks, but like fuck it, that's just what we're calling them.
Yeah. But with any barrack or carrick that is the dwarves, rivalries start to happen.
I mean, shocking, right? Well, a big problem was that they were like, oh man, all of these things require aether gold to stay floating. So like, fuck the other dwarves, we got to keep our homes afloat. And that it almost started a civil war. I think it was called the Time of Reaving. Like, it was about as close as you can come to a civil war without actually being a civil war.
So they all got together to kind of prevent this, and it was the Conference of Madralta.
Okay, Madralta. I have a short rant to make.
Go.
Madralta, are you fucking kidding me? As in Malta?
Oh my god,
that's an island off the coast of like Italy, right?
Yes, it's in the Mediterranean somewhere.
Is there?
I actually know nothing about this, so like this is all new to me.
Hit us with your rant.
It's the fact that the conference of Madralta took place on the floating isle of Madralta, and Malta is like one of the big trading cities for like the Renaissance era, and it was just like, are you kidding me?
They're not very creative. They're not very creative.
It's like horribly
That's how it always is, though. They always take shit from actual like real life, and they just like Age of Sigmarify it.
Except that like we have all these barracks Nar, barracks Zilfin, barracks Zon, barrack Urbaz. Like as far as I'm aware, those are all either like references to older lore, like the world that was lore, or it's original. So like, really, Madralta, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they had this conference, and within this conference, they all kind of came to an agreement that, hey, let's live by this code. And that's where you get the Kharadron code.
The Constitution.
At this point, all of the dwarves had gotten together and they were like, hey, look, we were almost wiped out in this. And our traditions did fuck all for us. Like we tried working by tradition
and our gods,
and the people who follow tradition so stubbornly, like how we used to in the past, they're all fucking dead now. So like we need to be pragmatic. We need to be adaptive. We can no longer rely on the bloodlines of our people to know what's best for them. So we have to change literally everything about ourselves.
Well, you're
So the
you're missing a big
Kharadron-
chunk of it because it's not just bloodlines. There's a very big emphasis as well as like we cannot worship gods anymore. Like our gods did nothing for us, so our traditions and our worship is fucking pointless.
Yeah.
And so hence
this-
was the Kharadron Code born.
Yeah, this code kind of shifted this entire idea of like clan leaders, religion, all that crap, to the society that is based off of meritocracy. So everything is done by the merits of the person instead of like what their rank is, what their bloodline is, like
You
how
have to
much money they
prove
make.
that you can do this, not just be assumed that you can do this.
Yeah, and that's really big in their society. Also,
Now,
another thing that
having
really
said that, part of this whole meritocracy system, they're still dwarves. Part of your merit is whether or not you can turn a profit.
yeah.
It's actually funny because part of the code specifically states that like, people who make the booze, if you fuck up making the booze, we will kill you. The only time that you can make shitty booze is if you're stuck in a realm that's not owned by dwarves, because humans and elves drink swill and you don't have much of a choice.
Do you know they actually make their gold or their beer with aether gold?
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so they
honestly.
use aether gold as part of their machinery to make the gold or to make the beer, and so the beer will pick up trace amounts of it. So, like, true dwarven beer is known to have almost magical properties because it's got aether gold infused into it.
Do you know what that reminds me of?
What?
Like almost word for word.
But
Skaven lacing their liquor with warpstone.
you're not fucking wrong.
I'm just fucking saying they do the same shit, so their booze is all fucked up and magical as well. So I'm just saying, like, the rats did it first, technically.
Yep.
Another thing that was important about the Conference of Madrolta, besides being like, hey, this is what we are now, this is how our society is going to work, this is how we don't start killing each other, is they were also like, hey, Tzeentch is still trying to aggressively murder us, so like we need to stop doing his job for him.
Yeah.
Because he's still a massive fucking problem. Because I'm pretty sure there was a battle that happened like right after the Conference of Madrolta called like the Battle of the First Coalition or something like that.
Yeah, it was.
Which was which was a big fight against Tzeentch. And it's actually funny because the Kharadrons, honest to God, I think the Kharadrons might be the only faction of mortals that not only didn't get absolutely fucking murdered in the Age of Chaos, but they won. Like,
So,
the Kharadron Overlords kind of
That's-
resoundingly beat Tzeentch's ass.
That's actually a very interesting point because I wanted to make that point as well. Is that there's really only two civilizations that thrived in the Age of Chaos and actually like kind of really pushed them to who they are now. That is Kharadron Overlords and Orc War clans.
Okay, I feel like the orcs don't count because fighting is how they like grow and like live.
But they fought so much, they literally changed because of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just. It was probably just orcs beforehand, but now you got like brutes, which are way different. Well, not really way different. They're just the closest thing to a new black orc.
They're just beefier orcs, and they're beefy because they fought during the Age of Chaos a lot.
Yeah.
And didn't die.
Yeah.
There's actually a really funny picture of the Kharadron Overlords, if I remember correctly. It's basically like I think you're seeing what are the Zangors on the discs of Tzeentch called, Mitchell?
Zangor Enlightens.
Yeah, it's a Zangor Enlighten. I think it's a Zangor Enlighten on his disc, and in front of him, there's just like hundreds of thousands of Kharadron Overlord ships. They're just like, we're about to send you to meet your god.
Yep.
Going back to daddy.
I just love that picture.
It's just really important to understand that like the Age of Chaos is what made this race. It's not like it didn't really exist.
Well, yeah, it was born out of necessity.
Yeah.
And it worked really well, which didn't happen a lot. Like the Age of Chaos is notorious for everyone getting their shit pushed in except for orcs, Kharadrons, and Azir. And the only reason why Azir didn't get their shit pushed in is because they were like, yeah, close all the doors, no one gets in.
And they purged anything related to Ascent of Chaos.
Yeah, like they basically had to go full Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, and the Deepkin, because the Deepkin basically were just like, cool, we want nothing to do with this, we're fucking off now.
I don't think anyone really realized the Deepkin existed at that point except for, Teclis.
Yeah. Not wrong.
So with this whole entire thing of after their conference, it pretty much started the Great Sky War, and within this process of the Great Sky War, there was a massive turnover of technology. They went from black powder rifles to athermatically powered arsenal.
Aether gun gold. Aether gold guns. That's what basically.
Yeah.
They went from using black powder to magic gold missiles and shit.
Yeah, so I forget what the analogy was.
I believe in you. Come on, you can do it. Come on, Mitch.
I think
I believe in you.
What they stated their difference was that imagine like feudal Japan, like the end of feudal Japan fighting with like muskets to I don't know, I'm not gonna say the atomic bomb, but it's just like liberators. B-17s, B-24s.
It's like the Boxer Rebellion and Dan Daly. Do y'all know that story?
I have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
Okay. So Dan Daly is the only U.S. Marine to earn, or no, sorry, he's one of only 2 U.S. Marines to ever earn 2 Medals of Honor. And they actually made a law after it was proposed for his 3rd Medal of Honor that changed the law to say you could only have 1 because he got nominated for 3 Medals of Honor. And they were like, bro, that's unacceptable. But like this dude was a fucking OG, I swear. No, he got his first Medal of Honor. How do you flex
after getting a Medal of Honor by saying you have 2?
But so basically, Dan Daly, his story starts at the Boxer Rebellion, which was in China. And basically, so the reason it's called the Boxer Rebellion is because at the turn of the 1900s, so going from the 1800s into the 1900s, China was opened up to Western influences. And there was a group of people who basically decided, nope, this is too much, too fast. China needs to stay Chinese. And it was a group of young men who started a group. I can't remember their organization, but they were all martial artists. And basically what they did is they went around and they found every missionary, every businessman, every ambassador, every Westerner that they could find, and they just beat them to death. And so...
fuck, all right then.
There was a U.S. ship off the coast with Marines on board, and they were like, okay, cool, we're going to go deploy the Marines. We're going to round up as many Americans as we can find, and we're going to hold them inside of a building, and we'll escort them off of the mainland and bring them back to America whenever we get reinforcements. So the Marines deploy, and then their reinforcements get delayed. So all of the Marines decide to leave the building to go find the reinforcements, and they leave one guy behind with like one machine gun, his rifle, and a pistol. And like, that's it. And sure as shit, when there's only one Marine there, 200 of the Chinese martial artist guys show up, and they're like, cool, we're going to kill you now. And Dan Daly, who was the Marine who got left behind, was like, fuck you, and proceeded to kill all of them.
What?
Yep.
That's a pretty good analogy.
Yeah, because the part of the thing about these martial artists, and I forget, it's this one very specific organization. They truly believe that their martial arts skills made them impervious to bullets. So they would charge headlong at him, and he's just sitting there with a machine gun, and it's just like, all right, well, y'all are gonna fucking die today, and just mowed them down.
Oh, so basically they were like, we're good. And he was like, fuck you, I cast machine gun. And he was, in fact, the correct person in that argument.
Yep, exactly. So he fought them off with his machine gun and his bolt-action service rifle. And that, I believe, was his first Medal of Honor. And then he went on to go fight in World War One. He went on to fight in World War One and proceeded to kick ass twice more, in which he should have earned 2 more Medals of Honor. But after he got his second one and they nominated him for his third one, the government was like, no, you can't have 3. So they gave him a Distinguished Service Cross and a Navy Cross. I forget what the other one's called, which are basically the second best, as opposed to a Medal of Honor.
I'm just picturing the government being like, no, you can't have 3. Why is that? So the other troops think they have a chance.
Yeah, probably. I think the reason they said he couldn't have one is because it wasn't like fair. But
Like,
anyway.
how dare you put yourself in a situation multiple times and survive?
How dare you be an absolute badass?
But no, so ironically enough, part of his actions, you know that line, come on, you sons of bitches, do you want to live forever?
Oh yeah, from Starship Troopers.
That line is attributed to him.
Really?
Yeah, because they were at the fighting at Belleau Wood, which is some of the worst fighting that the Americans saw in World War One, and their officer died. He was a sergeant at the time, a master sergeant, and he's looking around and he's realizing that the Germans are like not really ready to receive an offense from them, and the officer's dead, so he's the guy in charge. So he's like, "Fuck it, the Germans aren't expecting us. Now's the time to attack." So he gets up, walks out into no man's land, turns around and says, "Come on, you sons of bitches, you want to live forever," and just charges the German line. And that offense is what led to that initial offense is what led to the capture of Belleau Wood by the American forces, which basically turned the tide of World War One.
Well, fucking all right then.
That's worthy of Medal of Honor right there.
Yep.
Yeah,
and that was the one that they said, no, you can't have it.
Bro, walking in a no man's land should be the main reason why you get it.
Dude, every person who went over the top in World War One, as far as I'm concerned, every American who went over the top in World War One deserves a fucking Medal of Honor. That war was atrocious.
No man's land was fucking awful. Like, good lord.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was interesting. Thank you for story time.
Yeah. You can actually thank the fat electrician.
That's fair. I'm going to keep it a buck, though, because I am, in fact, stupid. I lost the analogy between that and the Kharadron Overlords.
We were talking about the difference between black powder going to aethermatic weapons.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's
and
like
then you
that
got me sidetracked
meme.
on Dan Daly.
It's that meme of is it a war crime to have superior force? That's really what it is.
Yes, it's a war crime.
Remember, kids, it's not a war crime the first time.
Oh, that is like the Kharadron shtick, though.
Yeah.
It's not a war crime the first time. If we keep making new shit, they can't keep banning it.
Remember, kids. If they're demons, they're not humans, i.e., they are not under the Geneva Convention.
Oh Lord. So back on the Kharadrons, the big thing that they were fighting during the Great Sky War that prompted all of this war criming was the Tetronomicar.
Yeah.
Tetronomicar. Yes, it was a grouping of 3 Tzeentch demon princes who were like, "Fuck you, bitch, we own the skies," and the Kharadrons were like, "And I took that personally."
Yeah, no. So it's 3 Tzeentch demon princes, and they were determined to shit all over the overlords. They had been part of the initial fleet that caused the Sky Exodus, and they had been hunting them down ever since.
Yeah, so like that was that was the battle I'm pretty sure they fought, called the Battle of the First Coalition, right after the conference of Mildralta, and they kind of like beat their ass aggressively.
Yeah, one thing to note about the Kharadron code is it's actually based off of naval law. So it's very much lends itself to like, oh, hey, we all need to work together in a military setting. Cool. The Kharadron code is basically already built to accommodate that. So that's part of why the Battle of the First Coalition goes so heavily in favor of the Kharadrons is that they were like, cool, we need to do naval operations. Oh, look at that. Our entire society is built around naval command.
If everyone flies, like everyone knows how to do the thing, so we're gonna do the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, so in this first, like the Battle of the First Coalition, they went against the naval code that is pretty much adopted by all countries in the world, which is an American naval. It's like some American officer wrote it before 1900, and it's always stated in that book. It is stated, you stay together. Your entire fleet stays together. Do not divide your fleet. And that's kind of one of the big reasons why that Japan actually lost a lot of battles in World War II when it came to the naval, because they constantly kept on dividing their forces.
Which is actually really funny because in this fight, that's why they won.
That's how they won, is they divided their forces.
Well,
And I'm like, it doesn't make sense. That's not naval battle.
It's because, so at least the reason why they explain it is that the Tetranomacar, they were in this like massive flying fortress with fucking big ass crystals and Tzeentchian magic that was keeping it afloat. And it was just this really just gargantuan hulking fucking monstrosity
it was three of them, one for each of the demon princes.
And the Tzeentchian forces outnumbered the Khardons. I think it was like 2 or 3 to 1. And so in this battle is actually what defines Khardon naval battles, naval doctrine, like to this day. Is so basically they rolled up in this fight and they're like, yeah, we can't beat them face to face. They have more people, they have more firepower. We can't win this. So what do we do? And the dude who was I think it was the first like Grand Admiral.
Yeah, Kharadron Brand.
Thank you. Kharadron Brand was like, listen, this is what we're going to do. And basically, he split the fleets into smaller fleets. And that
basically strike forces.
They were more maneuverable than the big monstrous Tzeentchian flying craft. So basically, they split into a bunch of, they went from big fish to small flies, and they went around, and they were harder to take down because of that. And they targeted the crystals that were keeping the thing afloat, and they blew them up, and then it fell and blew up, and so that's why they won.
So Mitchell, as to go back to your whole, this doesn't make sense because of naval code. This is the one situation which does make sense, because think about the Yamato,
Taffy 3,
best battleship of all time, arguably speaking. And then you know what that ship was absolutely terrified of?
Torpedoes,
PT boats.
Yeah, torpedoes. Because that's how we took it down, right? It was basically
not necessarily torpedoes, but specifically PT boats. Just swarms of PT boats. So like, oh yeah, you have overwhelming firepower and like you outnumber us.
Do you not know about Taffy 3?
But you can't shoot us all at once. Because if I remember correctly, that's how the Yamato sank, right? Was basically they just got torpedoed to absolute shit by PT boats.
That Mitchell can tell you more about Taffy 3 and how the Yamato actually sank, but there was one of the early engagements in the Pacific Theater that like the Yamato was like, oh yeah, we need to go into these islands to provide fire support. And there was a whole horde of PT boats in the islands, and they sent a scouting force in first that got fucking annihilated by PT boats, and they were like, you know what? Never mind, we're not doing that. We're gonna fucking turn around and leave.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
But no, Taffy 3 is pretty much the biggest David versus Goliath story that there is, because you have the Yamato versus like a couple of destroyers.
Wasn't it like 3 destroyers and an escort carrier?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And like one particular destroyer was like, I guarantee you they're going to constantly adjust their shot. So I'm just going to go to the columns of water that the guns are actually like creating. So if they just kept the same trajectory, they would have destroyed the destroyer, but they kept on changing to adjust.
Yeah, so basically the destroyer would see the splash of the shell that missed them and go towards the shell, but then the Yamato was like, oh, time to adjust because we missed them, and so they kept missing.
That's amazing. You know what I find fucking hilarious with the Yamato? I know we're kind of tangenting off, but like I'm pretty sure it only sunk like 2 boats in its entire like life against fighting the Allied ships. Like it sank like a destroyer and like an escort carrier, I think, and that's literally it.
See,
Like the greatest
that's the thing that I
battleship
always
ever,
find.
and it did jack shit.
Yeah, that's what I always find funny is people are all like, "Oh yeah, the Yamato and the Bismarck and the Tirpitz, like these are the greatest battleships of all time." And it's like, okay, like technically speaking, yeah, you might have a point there, but also like the Iowa class battleships were in service for 40 years and actually did shit. So like, are you sure you want to make that
So
claim?
don't ever underestimate the power of having to deal with it. Because that's
Yeah.
just a ship that you can't leave alone. You got to
Yeah.
constantly plan around it.
Listen, if there's one thing I've learned by playing a lot of World of Warships is never underestimate underage boats. Underage boats are terrifying if you take your eyes off them.
That's that's a saying for destroyers.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. Okay. So,
Tangent done.
yeah, tangent done. I think. Phil, any more tangenting? For
Well,
this
now that we're
particular-
onto the subject.
Oh,
No, so yeah, the Battle of the First Coalition, basically the Kharadron split their fleet into a bunch of different smaller basically strike groups, and they just swarmed them because the Tzeentch for the forces of Tzeentch tried to like fight them off and hunt them down. What was happening is they just run and hit them with a quick like one-off runaway, and the Tzeentch guys would go out to follow them, and then they'd get ambushed again and fucking annihilated. And so they just kept doing that over and over and over and wearing them down, and they'd fly in, target the crystals, and just blow up their battleships basically.
was definitely one of those things where like there's only 3 Kharadrons, but it feels like there's 13
Yeah, exactly.
because they're kind of everywhere at once.
Yeah, so the Grand Admiral Brand is slain in the battle. Whenever he is turned to solid silver by a Lord of Change. But his victory at that battle basically created the Kharadron naval strategy that remains to this day.
I mean, like by and large, when it comes to like the big battles, I don't really think the Kharadrons have lost a big battle yet. Like they're not always victorious, but every big like pivotal battle, they normally win.
Oh yeah, no, like if it's a big pivotal battle and the Kharadron show up, like do not put your money on the demons. They will not win.
Oh, it's fucking hilarious because every time, like, so I'm not sure about the smaller battles and the little ones, but basically every single big battle there is after the Great Sky War, it basically goes as such. Ah, yes, the Kharadron Overlords show up. Ah, yes, they drop 40 million nukes. Ah, yes, they win.
Yeah, you're not
And that's
wrong.
every fight is basically, it's always like, ah, yeah. And so the Kharadron Overlord shot the demons 97 billion times, and it kind of disintegrated. And then what
Extra
happened?
Swiss
Nothing. They
cheese.
win. Well, yeah, no,
Super
that's
Swiss cheese.
and that was it. And then they won because everything got fucking disintegrated because
Yeah, it's
the
like,
Khar-
oh, but I'm a demon prince. 50 Kharadrons with athermatic rifles. Cool, we don't care. Bonk.
say
Yeah.
this to my gun, Bink. Yeah, no, the Kharadron Overlords definitely embody the yes, we made enough bullets to shoot the entire population of the planet 8 times.
Yeah. So this happens, and then what follows is called the Season of Strife. So basically, one of the barracks finds a way to disguise their vessels, like to disguise the allegiance of their vessels. And so they're like, oh, cool, we're now going to commit piracy. So this happens, and a bunch of Aether Gold is stolen from all of the other barracks. Because at this point, the barracks don't move very much, and the Aether Gold doesn't move very much. So a lot of these barracks have established Aether mines. Like basically, hey, this is our domain. Everything within this domain belongs to us. These are our mines. Don't touch our fucking bananas. But of course, the big barracks had larger domains, better Aether veins, Aether Gold veins, things like that. And so one of these smaller barracks was like, well, fuck you, we want to get rich too. And so they started to commit piracy against other skyports. And so a bunch of Aether Gold was lost. The economies of multiple barracks is disrupted. And keep in mind, Aether Gold is not just a currency, it's also what powers the skyports. It's what keeps them afloat.
And
So
what
disrupting the flow of Aether Gold is not just like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm stealing your money. It's like, oh no, I'm stealing your money and your gasoline at the same fucking time.
By the way, I
What?
just really want to bring in the the true scale of what a skyport is. I want you to imagine the metropolitan area of the city of London and
But it
put it in the
flies.
sky.
But it
Yeah.
flies.
No,
But it
these are
flies.
skyports. Like
Truly
it's like
gargantuan.
Mitchell said earlier. The translation for Kharadron is sundered mountains. These are literally these mountains floating in the sky. These things are fucking massive. They're literally floating islands.
Yeah, so like if they need a lot of fuel to stay up, and if they don't get the fuel, horrible things and millions
They
of dwarves
will literally
die.
fall from the sky. Yeah.
Yeah. Something that really cracks
So
me up is every time I think about the whole like the beginning of piracy during the season of Strife is basically that scene from Pirates of the Caribbean and the Black Pearl where he's like, oh yeah, the code, it's more of a guideline.
yeah,
Really, the
and that
that's
is
Kharadron code
exactly
is
what
just a
happened.
guideline.
That's exactly how I see that.
And that's
because
that's the thing about the Kharadrons is they have this intense reputation for being
Really
like
tricksy and
really
deals.
hard, like kind of tricksy and real hard asses with bargains that they make. And so there's a saying that goes something to the effect of like read every carrot help
a
me.
Kharadron does not accept a contract if they do not read it 1,000 times.
Yeah, like if you're going to make a contract with a member of the Kharadron people, read that bitch 10,000 times because they will find a way to screw you.
the way that I see it is if you're making a deal with the Kharadron, treat it as if it's a monkey's paw.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, because that's like their whole shtick. And so I know the code was pretty heavily changed after the whole piracy thing happened because they were like, yeah, this shit can't happen. This is bad.
So basically, they find out which one of the skyports is doing this, and over a dozen skyports were like, fuck those guys, showed up and annihilated this other skyport. And immediately after that, changes to the code were made. Because remember, all of them live by the code, but there was nothing explicitly written in the code that prevented piracy. And they were like, well, that's a big fucking loophole.
They had to go in there and be, hey, don't steal other Kharadron shit.
Yeah. So one important thing to note about the code is it really does function. I think it was you, Jacob, who said that it was like the Constitution. That's actually pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So it started out as 9 amendments, for lack of a better word.
Articles.
There
There
are
are
9 articles.
9
Man.
articles. But all of the carracks or barracks can come together and vote to ratify new articles. And that's part of where the whole like these guys are super pragmatic comes in, because it used to be like in the old ways of the dwarves, it was like, oh hey, we ratified these 9 articles, cool. Those 9 articles are now going to be worshipped from here until the end of time, and no one can change them ever. Period. Whereas the Kharadron are very much like, we wrote these 9 articles. Next week, oh hey, something's happened. Cool, we're making a new article.
Do you want to
Or
know
we're adding an addendum to an article.
something that absolutely fucking cracks me up about the Kharadron code is it is in article, let me see, it's an article 7, which is the rights of ownership, which has to deal with like claims upon minerals and salvage and things like that. Sub amendment 327B.
Oh yeah, these are not short articles, by the way. There's only 9 of them, but they fucking have a lot of rules.
So sub amendment 327B of Article 7, the right of ownership. No further sub amendments regarding Article 7 shall be brought before the council.
Yep.
He made an amendment saying quit your shit about trying to take other people's shit. Oh, it cracked me the fuck up when I read that.
So yeah, no, and that's the other thing is that you can find basically the entire thing online, and like it's such a fucking headache to read because it is so much goddamn lawyer talk. Like I took 2 seconds to look at it and I was like, I'm not reading that. It's giving me a headache.
Yeah, I read the entire thing and I was like, yep, well that's all the research I'm doing today because my brain hurt.
There's
I needed to take a nap after it.
So whenever I was growing up, one of my favorite TV shows was Bones. And
Bones is good. Bones is really good.
I forget what the context is, but there's a line that's always stuck with me. They're talking about some kind of legalese and trying to navigate legal code in the TV show. And someone's like, oh yeah, even God would need a double shot of bourbon and an evening alone to be able to figure this shit out. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Pretty fucking accurate. Oh Lord. I think that's the majority of the important shit that happened during the Age of Chaos. So I think now it's Age of Sigmar time.
One of the barracks disappears. That's the last big thing.
Oh yeah. So shenanigans.
Yeah. So
I
basically,
like to imagine that entire thing is like that's a secret for later.
We'll bring that
He's
up
like-
at a later date.
Yeah, so basically, the last big event that happens in the Age of Chaos is Barrack Zoth, which had been the second greatest barrack, only behind Barrack Nar, which is considered the greatest of the barracks. Just disappeared off the face of the earth, just gone. Everybody was like, "What the fuck?" But there's supposed to always be 6 skyports.
Yeah, that's why they brought in Barrack Thrung.
Yeah. So there's always supposed to be 6 skyports to kind of balance everything out to represent all of the people, and it's the 6th biggest, obviously.
And which is actually funny because like there's such a discrepancy because they brought in Barrack Thrung because Barrack Nar disappeared. So Barrack Thrung
No,
is
not Barrack Nar.
No, Barrack Zoth.
Barrack Zoth, sorry, yeah. So Barrack Zoth disappeared, so they bring in Barrack Thrung, and like so Thrung is the smallest skyport of the 6 that represent the entire faction of Kharadrons. The another population, and because like their delegates are measured by how much gold they have. The amount of
it's really funny.
Aether gold they have, the amount of Aether gold that Barrack Thrung has is like 175,000. That's how much Aether gold they have. And they're number 6. Number 5, which is Barrack Morin or Mornar, I think.
Mornar.
They have
7 million.
They have 27 million.
Yeah.
That's
so
how
they're like
tiny Thrung is.
horrendously poor compared to everyone else. And that's by the way, Barrack Mornar, that's number 5. And they have
And they still have
27
one
million.
delegate.
Well, it also
Yeah, they
goes,
still only get 1 delegate on basically the council, so to speak.
it also goes to show the discrepancy of wealth in the Kharadron Overlord society, because if Barrack Thrung is the 2nd largest with 173,000,
6th largest.
6th largest, yeah, is the 6th largest with 173,000 shares of Aether gold. There's a lot more than just 6 skyports.
Yeah.
Like there is a hella discrepancy when it comes to like the distribution of wealth among the Kharadrons, because Barrack Nar, that is the biggest, has like what, 300 million, I think.
Yeah, over 300 million shares. One important thing to note though is that will change.
Yeah, the Necroquakes haven't happened yet, nor has the Age of Sigmar happened yet. So yeah, shit gets different.
So now we go into the Age of Sigmar and the Realm Gate Wars. So the Age of Sigmar happens, and Sigmar unleashes his Tempest. He unleashes his wrath and his golden, not demons.
The Sigmarines
are thrown down from the heavens in bolts of lightning, and they start fucking destroying chaos wherever they find it. Ironically enough, the Kharadron Overlords were one of the first to find out about this, because the fury of Sigmar's Tempest was so strong that it actually changed the Aether Gold veins. It moved them.
Yeah, because they float in the sky, so they can be moved by powerful currents of magic and shit like that.
Yeah. So now all of the previously established Aether Gold veins and mines that had been around to collect it, like all of that changes now. And they're like, oh shit. And so there's a massive scramble to reestablish new mines and new claims on mines that had changed position.
Which is actually really funny because the Necroquakes are the same thing, but it's so much worse.
Yeah. So this was like a gentle push. And so like now prospectors could go out and be like, oh yeah, there's a new vein over here. Cool. Let's grab it real quick. Da, 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 da. And like, so there was a little bit of a change up and everything. It was like, all right, cool. Like that was something spicy that happened. And then of course, the Gates of Azir reopen, and these big golden boys start running around, and the dwarves are like, oh, that's kind of neat. All right, moving on.
And we'll get to it in a minute, but like the best way
one important thing to note real quick before we move on is that at this point in time, the overlords are still very isolationist, and so a bunch of them were like, hey, we probably should help the land dwellers like cast out chaos, but at the time their code had not been changed to allow for them to negotiate with other forces, because keep in mind, at this point the only people they've had contact with were chaos or other overlords,
which doesn't really count because chaos aren't people.
Yeah, exactly. And so at this point they were extremely isolationist, but like again, that's because they hadn't seen friendly faces in quite literally thousands of years.
So before we start talking about like the first treaty that the Kharadrons ever sign with land dwellers, essentially, I just wanted to make a quick joke that's also very accurate, so we'll get to it in a minute. But the one word that I can say about what the Necroquakes did to Aether Gold mines, unlike Sigmar's Tempest, which like Phil said was more of a gentle, like, hey, the power's coming, it's moving things around, uncovering new veins of Aether Gold. The Necroquake looked at all of the Aether Gold deposits and just went, yeetus.
Yeah. Yeet.
And that's exactly what they did.
Oh yeah. And we'll circle back to that when we get to the Necroquakes.
So,
but now we're on to the Treaty of Vindicarum.
Yes, when the flying dwarves met the golden demons.
Mitchell hasn't had a chance to speak yet. Hey, Mitchell, you want to go over the Treaty of Vindicarum?
No.
Well, we're going to sit here in silence until Mitchell decides to be a team player.
Please don't. Don't do this to me. I've had a stressful week.
Suffer.
Hold fast, brother.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me just read for a bit, okay?
Okay. You don't have to do it if you don't want to.
I actually really like this treaty, so I'm going to go ahead and cover it. But basically, so following the opening of the Gates of Azir and the Stormcast coming out and starting to reclaim land for mortals, a city gets built in Tremone called Vindicarum. Vindicarum, it's protected by Stormcast, and there's humans in it. It's actually one of the first cities.
Tzeentch was unhappy about this.
Yeah,
kind of chaos in general.
Yeah, so it's one of the first major cities built in Tremone by the Stormcast Eternals. And this happens, and Tzeentch looks at that and goes, you fucking did what on my turf? And immediately sends a massive assault against the Stormcast Eternals.
Tzeentch was like, how dare you touch my bananas? I'm going to touch your bananas.
Yeah, exactly. So the Stormcast are horribly outnumbered, and they are very quickly overwhelmed. So basically, like, almost the entire population of the city is wiped out. Half of the Stormcast that have been there are sent back to Azir. And, like, it looks like an absolute fucking disaster just waiting to happen. Like, everybody's going to die. And then Barak Nar is like, you know what? They don't like chaos. We don't like chaos. Fuck the code. We're going to go fight with these guys, and we're going to fucking annihilate some demons together. And that is exactly what they do.
Because that's what true friendship is about.
Well, actually, so if I remember correctly, the way that Barak Nar like rationalized their decision with the code at the time was they were like, well, yeah, we can't do things unless there's going to be profit involved, but having this treaty with the Golden Boys is going to have future profit for us.
Yeah, and that's basically their rationalization, because remember, these guys are incredibly pragmatic. So they take a look at the code and they're like, the code doesn't technically allow us to do this, but it also doesn't technically allow us to not do it. So we're going to do it because this could profit us in the long run. And so that is exactly what they do. So Barak Nar, which again is the largest of the barracks, is like, we're sending our entire fleet to go help them. So they show up. They show up at Vindicarum, and just like, it is a literal wave of fire and destruction that descends upon this city, because the Stormcast are holding out at the city citadel, and they're basically just preparing to die. And then out of the sky just comes all of these frigates and other I forget what they're called.
Aethercraft.
Yeah, Arcanaut frigates just descend out of the sky in mass, and they just start annihilating all the demons they can find.
All I'm saying is that the Tzeentch demons started hearing Fortunate Sons, and they were very confused.
Oh yeah, no, that is pretty fucking accurate. So like, these Arcanaut frigates come flying out of the sky, and they just start blasting everything to Kingdom Come, and they drop down troops, and they just start going to town. And the Stormcast are like, oh look, friends, and basically single-handedly these Arcanauts just turn the entire tide of the battle and proceed to just kick the demons' teeth in. Like, there was a demon prince there, and the demon prince is basically like, I'm gonna fucking murder you, and the Overlord's like, that's cute, we cast cannon.
Listen,
and emphasis on nuke this dude.
Emphasis on there was a demon prince there.
Yeah, exactly.
listen, like I've already made the joke, but like I'm dead fucking serious. The entire like battle code of the Kharadrons is we're gonna show up and we're gonna cast gun. There is nothing after this.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, and yeah, and then
But this,
and then they sign the treaty, right? That's when they like make the
yeah.
actual
So
treaty
this
with
happens,
Stormcast.
and they end up signing the Treaty of Vindicarum. And what this does for the dwarves is, up until this point, they had only been trading with each other. Like Skyports had only been trading with other Skyports and maybe very minor mortal outposts. But now they expand their trade to literally every single city under the Pantheon of Order. Every single city is now a potential trade settlement for them, and their economy fucking explodes after this.
Yeah, because that's when they set up their like multi-realm trading network and start dominating basically every mortal realm sky.
Yeah, and it's at this point that you really start to see that the Kharadrons run instead of being more of a traditional Carrack, the barracks, the way that they run themselves are now more like businesses. And so whenever you deal with a barrack, it's not like, oh yeah, it's one king to another. It's like, okay, cool. No, we're a business. We're in it for the profit. What do you have to trade?
It's kind of like
profit us.
It's kind of like the mega corporation DLC on Solaris.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty close to that. All right. What was the next thing that happened in Age of Sigmar? It was the Sky Purge?
Yes.
Or was it the yes? No. Notes. Shit.
Yeah, no, it's the Great Sky Purge that comes.
Oh, okay, no, gotcha. I think that was just them fucking with Tzeentch, wasn't it? Like they were just like, man,
Yeah, so
we haven't fucked with Tzeentch in a while. Let's go fuck with Tzeentch.
Yeah. So initially there was the Great Sky War, which is where basically the Kharadrons proved that they could beat Tzeentch, and then follows the Great Sky Purge. So the Great Sky Purge is now like, okay, cool. We now know that we can beat Tzeentch in a war. So now we're going to claim control over all of the skies. Because at this point they were still fighting Tzeentch off on a fairly regular basis, but it was never anything super big. But at this time they're like, no, we now have the power and the military might to be able to just claim all of the skies of Chimone for our own. And so that is exactly what they do.
Oh yeah, because they go
form...
in with the Stormcast and they're like, yeah, we're gonna fucking kick Tzeentch's ass and like make it unanimous. So, like if it flies, we own it.
Exactly. So they, using their new Treaty of Vindicarum, they take on Stormcast, and between the Stormcast and the Overlords, they proceed to just clean house in the stratosphere of Chimone and annihilate everything not mortal in the skies. And it actually ends up leading to the a revision of the Kharadron Code, a new article called the Aether Strike Force, which is basically, okay, cool. It is now official. The Stormcast and the Overlords can now work together, and we can do this in an official manner. Like they legitimize the cooperation between.
Yeah, they're like we in the Stormcast, we are homies and we do shit together. And there really isn't going to be any like, oh wait, does the code permit this? Like, yes, it is 100% ratified into the code that we do shenanigans with Stormcast Eternals.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, I need a I've been trying to get my hands on a Broken Realms Bellacore because I know a big part of that has to do with the Kharadrons.
That comes later.
That does come later, but I know like it has a lot to do with like Kharadron shenanigans and Storm. Oh, do you?
Well,
oh shit!
Borrowing it from Sam.
I thought it was really hard to get a hold of.
I'm borrowing it from Sam.
Gotcha.
That's who we should get on this podcast one of these days is Sam.
Well, that'd be dope as fuck.
Yeah. Sam is a chill guy.
I think the next thing the big thing that happens is like Kairos doing shenanigans with Barrett Zahn.
Yeah, so with this one in particular, it kind of really this event really shows that can you not bite my foot? Sorry, Hephaestus was biting my big toe.
That's just how he shows he loves you.
Yeah, no, God, sorry. So this event kind of really shows this entire idea of how the Kharadron Overlords are more about the societal gains instead of individual gains, because with Barrack Zahn, it was besieged for 99 days before kind of a
Who is
gigantic
it besieged by?
Take a guess.
Dun, dun,
Okay,
dun,
but
dun,
it's kind of important.
Birdman.
Okay, who?
Like who specifically? I mean,
To be
is
fair, I
leading
said
it, is
I
it-
said
Kairos Fate Weaver.
I said Kairos. I said Kairos Fate Weaver.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I missed that. My bad. My bad.
Yeah. So it kind of really just a lot of these other sky fleets and other sky ports is like I think it was almost every other single sky port came to kind of like free the siege, besiege the siege. Is that
So
how,
they actually appoint another high admiral. So at this point, there's only been 2 notable high admirals. The other guy during the first coalition, and then this guy, Brock Grungson.
yes.
Brock
yeah,
Brunson's
literally-
still alive, right? He's still around, isn't he?
I believe so, yes. But he assembles a confederation of sky fleets from every skyport. And they just take a look at the blockade and they're like, we're not going to run this blockade. We're going to fucking ram it. And that is exactly what they do.
I mean,
Yeah.
if it worked, it's not stupid, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it really just kind of shows that the entirety of the race is planning to work together because they know they need each other in order to survive.
It's actually
Yeah.
really cool because, like, a big thing I think that's very prevalent in AOS is how, like, the races of order have a really hard time working together, not even just with each other, but even internally. There's always a bunch of strife within themselves. And the Kharadron Overlords, who are very, very pragmatic, and they're a meritocracy, and they're all about, you know, financial gains and things like that. But they're also like, nah, man, we are one people, and if one of us succeeds, we all succeed.
Yeah.
And that's really cool because you don't see that a lot in AOS. Like, you just don't.
Yeah, no. Because even amongst the storm hosts of the Stormcast Eternals, they very much compete against each other. Like, yeah, they'll fight with each other, but they very much prefer to do things on their own.
They want the glory.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
And
very
the
human. of them.
Kharadron, whereas
That's
the
like never
Kharadron
the
Overlords,
case for them.
yeah, the Kharadron Overlords are very much like, oh no, like if we fuck each other over, that's one thing. But if someone else starts fucking with us, no, that is unfucking acceptable. You will be purged. Like, you are an enemy to our entire race. An enemy to one is an enemy to all.
We will, in fact, cast gun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like seeing that because it's just really cool. Because like I said, you just don't see that a lot in AOS, and it's like it's kind of like a breath of fresh air in my opinion.
Yeah, a little bit. I definitely see that.
So yeah, I think the next is the Necroquakes, right? Or fuck shit.
One thing I would like to say real quick is that the Arcanaut frigates that made up this confederation, the Skyfleet Confederation, they had so much firepower that whenever they fired against the demons weren't just killed, they were fucking erased from existence.
I would call that a proper use of force.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Remember, superior firepower is not a war crime.
Exactly.
It's mainly because like there's no
So-
one left to say it's a war crime.
So now we move on to Garrick Tormund, also known as the Necroquake.
Garrett Tormund, that's it. Yeah, I was trying to remember the name. Yeah, so
Because of
this is
course
like
the dwarves have a name for it.
this is what like part 96 of Nagash fucking things up for everyone.
I feel like we can do the Garrick Torm and Necroquake and Arcane Optimar. It's very much the same. What's always happened with these events. Get swarmed by Nighthaunt. Magic is really screwed up.
The Necroquake itself fucking did weird bullshit magic things and fucked a bunch of things up, and yeah.
It messes
So the-
with their currency because the entirety of Aether Gold veins got moved.
Well, the really cool thing about the Necroquakes and how it affected the Kharadrons, or both the Necroquakes and the Arcanum Optimar, is that like, so even though like technically they don't go this route. There was kind of a hierarchy amongst the Kharadron Overlords because there were all these Aether Gold mines and whatnot that have been set for a long time. So like, oh yeah, this Skyport has this mine, and they're really big because they have all the rights to this Aether Gold mine, and yada yada yada. So a hierarchy was established because of that. But then, Nagash did Nagash bullshit, and all the magic came through, and it displaced like all of the Aether Gold mines and whatnot, like drastically. And because the Kharadron code specifically states that, like, hey, if someone loses their shit and you find it, like, it's kind of yours. Like, you have rights to it because you scavenged it. And so all the Aether Gold deposits change locations, and it causes this big mad dash to go find them all again. And it establishes a new hierarchy, basically, because all of the big veins that existed were lost and then found by different Skyports. And then on top of the fact that the Arcanum Optimar itself uncovered a bunch of new ones too.
Yeah.
And so it was really, really cool because it just kind of reset their hierarchy, which is neat. It also caused a bunch of shenanigans, like, Night Haunt everywhere and people dying and, super happy fun times.
One of the other big things that happens is that 2 of the minor barracks, Barrack Dermaz and Barrack Kling, were actually knocked out of the sky because the shockwaves from the Necroquake disrupted their Aethermantic engines so badly that they just fell from the sky.
Oh shit! Did they like fell from the sky but got back up, or like they got destroyed?
No, they straight up fell out of the sky.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah. And like Barrack Nar, that one that we said was the biggest one, they ended up losing approximately 1/5 of their entire navy.
Oh yeah, just got knocked out of the sky.
Yep.
That's not good.
Yeah.
They also lost a delegate, didn't they? Because they actually lost like 10 million shares of Aether Gold, and it caused them to lose a delegate, which was picked up by Barrack Zilfin.
Yes. So the changes that we see is that Barrack Nar ends up having a 3 to 4% loss. There's actually charts that have the actual statistics laid out, but Barrack Nar lost about 3 to 4% of its gold revenue. Barrack Urbaz was the worst out of the 6 delegates. They lost almost 45% of their gold. Dude, Barrack Thring came out on fucking top though.
To be fair, it almost doesn't matter because they're so small, but they have like a 250% gain and they still have one delegate.
No, they had a 370% gain.
Jesus Christ.
But that didn't get them a delegate because that was only 650,000 Aether Gold, whereas Barrack Mornar gained 65 million Aether Gold.
It's like, oh my god, we have this almost 400% increase. What did we gain? Nothing, technically.
Hey, nothing is sometimes better than something.
A better profit than loss, right?
Yep.
Another really cool thing that happened because of the Necroquakes, or at least the undead being everywhere because of the Necroquakes, is it spawned a new military asset for the Kharadrons called the Black Marines, who specifically exist to deal with ethereal beings like ghosts and some demons and undead and shit. Is they wear obsidian armor and they have shotguns basically with anti-ethereal equipment, and they just exist to be like, oh man, you don't have a physical body? I don't care. I cast gun.
Yeah. Their entire purpose is just to fuck over demons and undead.
I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, no, they are very cool. Are they technically a part of the Grunstock?
Yes, they are elite formations of Grunstock Thunderers.
Gotcha. So one important thing to note is that there's a distinct difference between the Overlord Navy and the Overlord Infantry. So the Kharadron Navy is its own thing, but the Kharadron Infantry are actually owned by what are known as Grunstock companies.
They're basically they're basically PMCs, right? Not PMCs. Private. They're private military, aren't they? Technically.
Technically, yes, they are private military contractors. Realistically, though, the way that they work is it's once they sign a contract to work for an organization, whether it be another merchant company or it be a skyport, Once you sign that contract, they are locked in on that contract, and they will not betray that contract. So
Yeah,
whereas
like
with
if
most
the contract
Kharadron
says they're there for life, they're there for life.
yeah, so if most Kharadron, like whenever they sign a contract, it's like, oh, we might loophole out of it. No, these guys, they straight up like oath swear themselves, which is similar. It's like kind of the opposite of a grudge, because grudges still exist. They take it from a much more um mercantile perspective of like, oh, like we have a grudge against you, so like we're just not going to do any kind of business with you. So like the opposite of that would be these like oath vows or oath I forget exactly what they're called. They're oath something. Oath. Anyway, there's a very specific term for the kinds of contracts that they make, and it's like oath vows or something like that. And it's basically like, oh no, we will do everything in our honor, within our honor, to follow not just the letter but the spirit of the contract. And their whole motto is protect with honor. So like if these guys take a contract, like they're not going to try and stab you in the back of it. They're going to do everything in their power to live up to the spirit. Oath signed. There it is.
Oath signed. Okay.
But yeah, like they're very much like, oh no, like we are locked in.
Well, it makes sense because like they're basically the only form of Kharadron infantry. So if they were shady and then they like lost their honor, like they would lose all of their business because they'd be like Kharadron's be like, fuck it. If you're gonna be like that, we're just gonna find our own version of infantry because you can't be trusted.
Yeah. And there's usually one of these academies. So there's academies that train the Grund Corps, and there's usually one of these present in every skyport. But these are the guys who make up the sharpshooters and the pilots of the sky fleets. But they can also just be contracted as individual, like, or not individual. They can be contracted out to various other organizations. But basically, this is what replaces like the old Thunderer squads from dwarves. Is that now they're part of like an organized unit.
Another thing that I
really, like one Carrick fields its own Thunderers.
Enjoy about Overlords, and this is more of their aesthetic for me, is like if you were to look at a Grundstock Thunderer, like they 100% could be in 40k.
Oh yeah,
they 100% have that look of like high fantasy but high sci-fi, and their guns all glowing with runes and shit, and they have like mechanical things in their like helmets for their eyes. They can have like better targeting and shit, and they have like robotic limbs if they've lost a limb. Like they look really cool, and I think they have a really unique look. Like a Stormcast Eternal looks badass as fuck, but you can tell that they belong in a fantasy setting. It's a very high fantasy setting, but they look they could be that they are fantasy. Like Overlord shit, like you're like, is that 40k? I'm not sure. Like if you didn't know who they were, you could look at them and just be like, yeah, they might be 40k.
Honestly, if someone came up to me and told me, hey, the Kharadron Overlords, yeah, that was just the oh shit, the new squat race in
Leagues of Votann.
Yeah, if you just came to me and said like, oh yeah, these are the Leagues of Votann during the long night, like I'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, they have
whenever all of the races of men were cut off, or all the races of the Imperium of Man were cut off from each other. Like, yeah, I'd 100% believe that.
Yeah, they have a very unique look, and I'm 100% here for it.
Yeah.
The Kharadron Overlords, they were the one race that almost drew me from lizards. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I love my Seraphon, but I look at Kharadron and I'm like, man, that's pretty tasty.
Steampunk sky dwarves. It's an aesthetic.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
All right. So next up.
Oh, hey, sorry. When it comes to this Aether War thing, I kind of want to do it as a sub episode because there's a lot more to it than just what is shown.
Well, that's Burning Skies, isn't it? That's Be'lakor Burning Skies.
We're not actually there yet. We're only on the Arcanum Optimar so far.
Oh, I thought we were further than that.
We're just now getting to the Arcanum Optimar.
Oh God.
So we'll circle back to that here in a second. But now we're on Gorak Drek, or the Arcanum Optimar. So this is the aftermath of the Necroquake. This is once everything starts to settle.
Yeah, this is like the largest Aether Gold rush that has ever existed since the time of Reaving, essentially.
Yeah. So, like we were saying, the Necroquake happens. It disrupts all known sources of Aether Gold, everything is thrown into chaos, and then they start rediscovering old veins and discovering new veins. And there is such a massive rush for prospectors who at this point, so no private entity can actually own an aether stream is what they're called. Technically, they can only claim them for the benefit of their skyport. But there is such a massive outrush of prospectors that are looking for new mines that like there hasn't been this much prospecting going on since basically before the Kharadron Overlords were Kharadron Overlords.
Huh. All right. Man, was it? Yeah, no. God, I swear, the fucking everything about the Necroquakes is so wild.
It really is. It completely disrupts everything.
Every time we talk about the fucking Necroquake, it's like, hey, do you want to see how shit got super whack?
Yeah, dude, the Necroquake is almost as disruptive as the end times. I like how you and I had almost the exact same idea.
Wait, I actually missed it because you're both talking. What did you say?
I think that the Necroquake would have been a better idea for end times.
And it would be fucking hilarious if the end times happened and then like the races of man and elves and whatnot in fantasy actually win against the end times. Like, Manfred doesn't kill Balthazar Gelt and they seal the portal and everything like turns out all peachy keen. And then Nagash is like, well, now that that's happened, I'm gonna do some head ass shit because everyone's weak. And then Nagash blows everything up.
Yeah, honestly, that would have been really interesting.
Oh, that'd be fucking hilarious.
Because then we could have gotten a bunch of different changes that came to the setting because of the Necroquake. Because the Necroquake is almost as disruptive and destructive as the end times.
Well, it's more long lasting, that's for sure. Because the Arcanum Optimar, that's just a thing that exists.
I don't know.
Now.
Blowing up the known universe is pretty long lasting.
Okay, besides the end that fucking nuked the planet, what I mean is like if you take away the whole like rats crashing the moon into the planet and chaos blowing up everything else that existed, because those are pretty, permanent things, taking those out, like the Arcanum Optimar, that like permanently redrew like the realities that magic follows. And that's permanent, basically.
Well, that's where the entire idea of endless spells come from.
Yeah, like that's never going to change.
In 1.0, there were no endless spells. Endless spells came with 2.0, which is Arcane Optimar.
Yeah, like could you imagine a magical rite that was so potent that it basically redefined the laws of reality, essentially?
For all the realms.
For all the realms, which are separated by space and time, basically.
Yeah.
Like that.
So,
that is crazy when you think about it.
I just realized we never actually explained what the Geldrat is. So the Geldrat is the ruling council that is represented by the 6 skyports. Like we never actually, I just realized we never actually explained that. So whenever we talk about the 6 representative skyports, we're really talking about the Geldrat, because that's basically their version of the House of Representatives.
Yeah, the Geldrat is like the top authority on things that happen with the Kharadron Overlords.
Yeah, they're the ones who ratify new articles to the code. But basically, so the Necroquake happens, then we get the Arcanum Optimar, and like this is an absolutely catastrophic event, and this just goes to show you how different the Overlords are from the dwarves of old, because they take one look at this, look around, and go, we need to make some fucking changes right now. So the Geldrat immediately convenes, and immediately they just start going out to all existing like Grun Corps and sky fleets and things like that, and they just start writing contracts as fast as possible to try and benefit the entirety of the Overlords. And there's like, we're gonna fucking do everything in our power to make sure we survive this, because to them this is basically another Exodus. This is another Sky Exodus. And so they're like, no, we've been through this shit once. We will not allow it to fuck us up again. And they just start ramrodding out as many beneficial trade routes and things like that as they can to try and make sure that everyone survives. And that is exactly what happens.
I think a big thing from that comes from their pragmatism too, because all the like the Necroquakes and the Arcanum Optimar happen and it fucks everything up. And instead of being like, oh god, damage control, what are we gonna do? Screeching and god, fear. They sit down and the Kharadrons are like, how can we turn this into profit and opportunity?
Yeah,
And that
exactly.
is exactly what they did. Because yeah, like a bunch of bad shit happened. I'm not necessarily saying the good overweighed the bad, but the fact that they had a pretty large amount of good that came out of that, of the Necroquakes and the Arcanum Optimar, speaks volumes for their pragmatism and tenacity, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it really does. Because, like, classic dwarves, they would have taken one look at that and go, fuck this shit. We're shutting the doors to our Carracks. We're hiding in our mountains. Whereas the Overlords, they took one look at this and they were like, this sucks. This is an opportunity. We're going to use this to our advantage. And so not only
And they
did they
did
survive,
successfully.
yeah, not only did they survive the Necroquake, they fucking thrived on it. So, like, during the Arcanum Optimar, you see this again. It's another economic explosion for the dwarves, and they just start franking out, like everything they can, and they just adapt to the new situation. And their economies just sees this another massive boon. Not to
Crazy.
mention
It's fucking crazy.
17 new amendments to the code.
You know,
Damn.
when you think about it, and this is fucking hilarious, I think, excluding Chaos, because Chaos doesn't count, Kharadron Overlords, I think, are the only faction that actually have a positive KD. If we're talking, if the KD here is like more of a win to loss ratio,
yeah,
versus all of the fucked up shit that's happened since the Age of Myth, Kharadron Overlords are the only ones that when things happen, they tend to come out positive than negative. Like,
it's their ability to adapt.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I love Sigmar. I love Sigmarines. Like, they're fucking amazing. But, like, they lose more than they win, I'm pretty sure.
Not necessarily, but all too often their pride is their downfall.
Well, not only that, a lot of times when you're talking about what Stormcasts do, it's not large events. It's really rare that you're having these stories of like big Stormcast armies. A lot of times it's like a group of 10 guys that are reinforcing a like city that are doing something. They're like, it's not their full strength. Like, you really don't get their full strength unless it was like a Realm Gate war.
Okay, well, allow me to rephrase my statement then. The Kharadron Overlords, I think, might be the only faction that can win and it not be Theoric.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I call this 40K syndrome. Is a lot of time it's like, oh man, we won, but everything is so hellaciously fucked that it almost doesn't matter. Take the Siege of Excelsis, for instance, where like, yeah, they won, but half the city's inhabitants died, and how many fucking Stormcasts fell?
Yeah,
you know, how many like big important characters did we lose? And then not even talking about how all the dead raised again and all that bullshit. But like every big battle, even when they win, they kind of don't. But the Kharadrons are because of how they are, because of their pragmatism and their mercantile nature and their ability to adapt. Is every time something happens, not only do they win, but it's a good win. It's not like, oh man, we lost like 16 skyports in the process. It's like, no, yeah, we did a thing, and like, yeah, we lost a couple ships, and skyport's kind of damaged, but that's about it. Everything kind of came out good for us, and it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, kind of the worst thing you hear in terms of large battles is the blockade. Like, the blockade is probably the biggest event that happens to the Overlords in terms of like they're caught on the back foot.
Yeah, and even then, it really wasn't that bad compared to some other battles where like the forces of order are caught, ambushed and caught by surprise.
Yeah. Just to give you another idea, so the actual translation for the Gorak Drek is the Great Venture. To show you just how like pragmatic these people are, literally, the Arcanum Optimar, which is widely considered to be a time of extreme turmoil and like discovery, and like some people win, but a lot of people lose. An entire race looks at that and goes, "This is the Great Venture.
Let's go make money.
This is the new time for us.
Let's go get paid."
Exactly. So, and part of what makes this so beneficial is that because of the rewriting of the code and new additions to the code, instead of like individual prospectors, the larger Aether Gold veins that are known, the Navy moves in and just claims them, and they're like, "Nope, this is ours." And so, like, instead of prospectors who would like spend time dithering around and like trying to seize and like bringing in forces to secure things, no, like the Navy shows up and they're like, "No, we're taking this. This is ours."
Yep. It's just like I'd said it before, but it's just a breath. It's just a breath of fresh air. It's nice to see that not every faction has to be written the same when it comes to like how they win or lose. Like it's a definite break from the norm, and I think it was much needed. Like I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and then also because of this new massive influx of Aether Gold, because again, remember this happens all across the Mortal Realms. So whenever I say the Navy claims a bunch of shit, really that's in Chamut. But everywhere else, everyone is now searching for new Aether Gold veins. It is a massive time of discovery and economic boom for the Kharadron.
Another
so
thing,
you see this massive arm race that takes off. And
oh no,
just
you're talking about what I was going to say.
Yo, our boys,
you
Barrack
see-
Thrang.
yeah, and so then you see like new torpedoes, anti-magic repulsors, etheric lenses that basically give people X-ray vision. Like it is insane the kind of anti-magic and inventions that goes on with here. So basically they get to the point where they're like, oh yeah, endless spells, cool. We just have things that just tell those things to fuck off.
Well, they kind of, you can't really like blame them. Like fuck all this weird bullshit magic going on.
Oh,
like
yeah, no,
they
absolutely.
kind of needed it. Like it was necessary. And that's another thing to talk about is like when the Arcanum Optimar happened, you had like let's talk about human mages. You had like, oh, let's try to like bind this new magic and create these new spells. And oh no, I've made a fire tornado that's gonna last for 300 years and kill a bunch of people. And they did a bunch of dumb shit. And then the fucking characters are like, what if we just didn't fuck with that and just made it say no? Like instead of trying to fuck with it, they're just like, why don't we just make it no? And just you don't get to do things. Like fuck you, magic. You can't do dumb shit.
Yeah, exactly. And this is actually the point in time where the Black Marines are founded.
Yeah, because it was the
this
Wraith Fleet
specifically.
conflict.
Yeah.
And that's not because magic shenanigans. That's just because like the other thing with the Necroquakes is like, hey, there's dead everywhere. So a bunch of Night Haunt were like, let's go fuck with the Kharadons. The Kharadons were like, Black Marines, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you don't have bodies? Not a problem. Anti-ghost shotgun shells.
Yeah, so like there's a vampire that shows up and he's like, I'm gonna swing my big dick around with all these undead, and the dwarves are like, Black Marines? Black Marines fucking perish.
It's like, oh no, we
we
have all these ghosty boys. You can't stop. Why did that ghost just get killed by buckshot?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well, you see, fuck you. That's why.
Yep.
The way I see it is like it's like the meme where the vampire is like, oh, I'm gonna go do all the shenanigans. The Kharadon's sitting there loading a shotgun. Shame.
Yeah, exactly.
Loading a shotgun. That's a shame. No. Whatever are we gonna do? Loads M32 rotary grenade launcher with malicious intent.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, may I introduce you to the Doomslayer? I'm sorry, what?
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it.
So we're now at what?
So
2 hours? in?
Yeah. Well, the next is the Aether War, and that leads into like stuff that happens with Bellicor and Burning Skies and whatnot. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stop here.
That's a whole nother like hour right there.
Yeah,
So, let's go ahead and stop for now.
And that's gonna be in part 2, because part 2 we'll do Aether Wars and Bellicor Burning Skies. We're not gonna go super into Bellicor Burning Skies just because like that could be its own episode, but we're definitely gonna talk about how it pertains to the Kharadons, and then we're gonna talk about like culture and society and like their view on religion with like them low-key kind of hating Grungy and like how they do oaths and things like that, because you're talking about how the grudges work, and they're actually called the mark of the grudges are called the not mark of right. It's
yeah, well they have grudges and they have marks, and like it gets a little complicated, but we'll go into that as well, and like their ancestors and things like that, and into more detail on exactly how like the sky vessels go.
We still have so
how,
much to cover.
Yeah, and like how the guilds work, how unions work, companies. Just like there is so much to go over. It's
Rune of
it's
Mark.
insane.
That's the call. Rune of Mark. Those are the Rune of Mark. That's the grudge clause. Fuck, I was trying to find the name.
Yeah, there is still so much to go over, and frankly, honestly, I'm looking at this now and how long it took for us to get through everything else, and we might have to do 3 episodes for this because like there is so fucking much. Because one important thing to know is like, yeah, these are dwarves. But whenever Games Workshop came out, the Kharadron Overlords, they basically completely rewrote the book on dwarves.
And that's not even talking about trying to get into like the different types of ships and things they use, which we were going to want to go over because they're very unique. Like, yeah, there's still a lot to go over, and we don't want to have a 4-hour episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like, whenever they came out with the Eden F Deepkin, like that was a little bit of a longer episode because like the Edeneth are a new race, and so all of the lore is new, and they really had to kind of flesh it out and things like that. What makes the Kharadron so hard to cover is not only is it basically a new race, so they have to tell you all of their lore and like really make you understand that this is a unique race. You also have to retcon all of the old shit as to why they aren't regular dwarves. And so like yeah,
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Not to mention a bunch of their battles are very much just like, oh yeah, so we kicked Tzeentch's teeth in, and like he can kind of go suck a fat nard while he's at it.
Hey, did we mention fuck Tzeentch?
Yeah, exactly. Dude, the Kharadron are like, they're some of the best people to have when fighting against Tzeentch because they're just so used to fighting Tzeentch. They're like, oh, is that a greater Lord of Change? Interesting. Can I introduce you to Black Marines?
Listen. All that I can say is that the Kharadron Overlords are the only ones who can say, like, you know how when like the Tzeentch thing, the joke is like, yes, all according to plan.
Yeah.
Like, so when a greater demon does when a Lord of Change does shenanigans and then like dies in the process, and he's like, oh yes, all according to plan. The Kharadron Overlords are the only ones that can go. Is it though?
Yeah, really.
That's all I'm saying. That's all that I'm saying.
But
Yeah.
no, it's fucking insane.
But yeah.
Okay.
So one thing I have to note from earlier in the episode is Jake and I got into a little bit of a disagreement about why the Load Griffin showed up, and I have to be honest, I was wrong. He was right. So Tzeentch planned for the Load Griffin to show up, but what drew it in was in fact basically the mines and the greed and everything that was being done by the dwarves themselves.
To be
So
honest, I would say we're both kind of right because like yeah, that's probably what caused the Lord Griffin to come down. But Tzeentch can fucking see the future and manipulate fate and whatnot. So I'm just gonna say that's kind of we're probably both right. We're like yeah, maybe Tzeentch didn't make the Lord Griffin come down, but he probably did some shit to like the dwarves and shit to make them do certain things that would cause the Lord Griffin to come down. So I'm just gonna say we're kind of both right on that, honestly.
Yeah. All right. Well,
but yeah, I think that's it. So
Okay.
we'll see y'all we'll see y'all in 2 weeks for part 2. But next Saturday we are doing a bonus episode, and honestly, we don't have. It's kind of up in the air what the bonus episode is going to be about. So if y'all want to drop some suggestions in the ideas and request chat, maybe we'll do a conspiracy theory part 2 episode. Maybe we'll just like scream autistic. We got the mic. Who knows? So if you have some ideas, feel free to shoot them to us.
Yep. All right. Well.
Okay.
Well, peace
Thank
out.
you very much.
We'll see y'all later.
See y'all later.